Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of the Gardener's Shed podcast. And in this episode today, I'm going to go through with you guys what's happened this week. So it's been a very busy week. I am on my holidays as from tomorrow. So normally I get the podcast sort of set up. I normally film Saturday or Sunday when I'm in the camper van. I've got all the time to myself. I like to, have a little bit of a talk about the week and, bit of a conversation, and also a bit about a central topic. So this week I'm doing a talk about a short week, but I'll be honest with you, lots happened in this week, and so I'm going to talk about that. Customer grievance, customer problem, kit problem, and the realities of taking time away. And I'm going to have the central topic today actually is going to be winter preparation, because we're the halfway point for the year now. And that's what I want to talk about. I want to talk about getting winter ready. So let's get on with it then, shall we? So this week has been very busy. If I'm being, completely honest with you, it's been a very busy week because, I'm going away Wednesday. So me and the missus, we're going up to Yorkshire. So by the time this podcast comes out, if she listens to it, I've planned it as a surprise for her, bless her. It's her birthday and she has put up with me. We're going up Yorkshire for, I think that's a good thing, but anyway, it's a beautiful part. We're going up there for 4 nights. Got plenty of stuff booked up. We're going to go in a couple of caves. I tell you what, I love an underground cave. I'm not the biggest sort of, you wouldn't think I'm built for it, but I do. And we don't go potholing, but I like exploring. Booked an afternoon tea, and then we've got a couple of activities planned for Saturday and Sunday. But I'll be honest with you, Saturday, Sunday, we're just going to be chilling out, just relaxing, getting a barbecue on. I brought my wood whittling stuff with me, so I'm going to make whittle a spoon, just chill out really. And I never thought I'd be able to do this in terms of taking that step away from the business, taking time away when it's the busy part of the season, in air quotes. And I've talked about this before because I have had time off previously this year. So it's the second time I've took time off. And you know what? People don't care. In a weird sort of way, they're fine with it. I've had customers, even customers that are a little bit funny and awkward. I've told them all when I last saw them that your visit's going to be, if it's, basically like the Wednesday, Thursday visits, I will get to you when I get to you, basically. So whether it's Monday or a Tuesday, and they're fine with that. I had a customer, they're saying, "Luke, could you come Tuesday because my wheelie bin's being cleaned, and by the way, have a brilliant holiday." Like I say, everyone's been fine. I think I put a lot of emphasis on people will be worried when they genuinely probably aren't going to be worried, and maybe other people do, but in general, people are fine with it as long as the work gets done and you're up to date with it and you're not constantly chopping and changing. I think if I was doing it every single visit, I could see a path for, people getting a bit annoyed at it. But, it doesn't happen very often, really. But the option's there. The option's there to take that time away, to have that time off. And I think it's so important. It really is. Even if it's 2 week away to beautiful Mauritius, or 4 nights in a camper van and going in caves, it's what you make it at the end of the day. So I've fitted 4 days of work into 2 days, and that's got me to thinking for next year about maybe changing. So my diary, I typically try and, there's days where I do 8 to 10, but typically I've tended to spread it out a little bit. And then that way I've got sort of, in air quotes, full days, but I've got room for an extra one here and there. I've got room for if something else comes up. I've got room, that if a customer says, "Oh, could you do this extra job?" Yeah, I can do it there and then instead of coming back. You get what I mean. But I'm thinking next year actually is changing the way I do it and getting, maybe, because Monday, Tuesdays are quite busy for me, I'm thinking actually of getting probably Monday, half of Tuesdays onto Monday, and then half of Wednesdays onto Tuesday. So Monday's a super full day, Tuesday's a super full day, Wednesday is a half day, and then you know, the floating work, the one-off work, you know, the one-off visits, the big visits, they can go Wednesday or Thursday or something, and just slot it in like that. I'll be honest with you though, I don't like messing with the schedule too much, because it's weird. I'm a creature of habit, but also my customers are, and I swapped a couple around this year, and it's weird actually, because they were like, oh, you're a day early or you're a day late. I'm like, no, I told you I've changed it, and it's, you've always come this year at this time. Like, no, I've done 6 visits coming on a Tuesday instead of a Monday. But like I said, but it's all in the aids of sort of freeing a bit of time up for me. I think my goal is it'd be nice if I could free a Friday up every Friday and have that as my floating day, that as my catch-up day, but we'll have to see. So, kit-wise, so what you giveth with one hand, you taketh in the other. So the Artesia Mower is poorly, actually. So I've talked about the Artesia Mower. I'm not going to make a big song and dance about it. I rung them up. I'm happy with the response. Basically, as it's running, I'm not an expert, but I'll give a diagnosis of what I think it is and what I've been told it is, actually. And basically, the mower, it sounds like it's struggling for fuel. So as if you imagine if you imagine when you run out of petrol, you're just about to run out of petrol, the mower starts hunting and struggling. It's been doing that for about a day. So I thought, right, so I took the air filter off, because like I said, I'm not a mechanic, so I took the air filter, gave it a good clean, put the air filter back in. Today I've noticed it, but it was getting worse and worse, and then eventually it just conked out. It just stopped working. So I rung up Artesia themselves, actually, and the guy there seemed very sort of knowledgeable. He's going to the place where I bought it from. I'm a bit gutted, really, because he's going there this Thursday, and if I could, I would have took it there and then to him. But alas, sod's law, I'm away then, and I've got no way of getting it down there. So I'm going to have to drop it off next week, but he said he's going to have a word with him, bring them up to speed, show them what it is. Basically, he says that he thinks there's a little bit of crap in the carb, and in all fairness, it's likely. He said, I'm not an expert, I'm going off what he said, but he said the carb's got like almost like a pinprick sized hole where it vaporizes the fuel, and he says it only takes like a grain of sand sized piece to fuck it, basically, to like block it. And when I look at, or when I think about, God, the amount of times I've mown and then something's blown and you see like bits of grass floating on the petrol or something, you're like, oh God. So that's what's happened, basically. It's not a thingy, but I'll always be, upfront and sort of honest with problems and stuff. I'm going to be a bit gutted, actually, because I must admit, I have really taken to that little mower. I used the still roller mower today for the first time this season, and oh bloody hell, it's like this great big unwieldy lump compared to the Artesia mower. So I think next week when I'm back, I'm going to be busting out the little still roller mower, and then probably the still 6 series mower, I think, because I've got a big lawn boot tin next week. But it is what it is. You're going to piss with a cocky given at the end of the day. It does make me think though about spares and stuff like that. I've been in the container today and I literally had to pull everything out to get the still roller mower out. So what I'm going to do at some point, I want to try and do it before the season's out. I'm going to have a good clear out. I've accumulated a lot of spares and I've accumulated a lot of spares. So I'm going to have a good clear out and get rid of basically the spare stuff that I don't need or I will no longer need, basically. So we're going to have a good clear out, get everything sold, that I don't need. It's like I've got 2 wheelbarrows now. I'm not a hoarder, but I was looking at it thinking, that'll be handy if like there's 2 of us on a job, we can have a barrow each. But I'm thinking, well, when do I ever need 2 people to barrow? So as I bought a bow wheelbarrow the other day, well, not the other day, a bit back now. So I'm going to sell this other barrow and get rid of that, and then sort of get rid of a couple of mowers that I don't need, and then, you know, bits of crap that I don't need. And then I think I'm just going to put the money in the pot and then use it to sort of upgrade some kit in the following season. My plan is by the start of next year, I want to upgrade the combi trimmer, the long reach hedge trimmer, and maybe the handheld hedge trimmer, depending. And then that way I've got basically all the commonly used kit that I use is going to be starting afresh with 2 years warranty, because I had a bill and it's still not back. I don't know what they're doing with it, you know. I dread to think. But I took me long reach hedge trimmers. It's been there for about 2 months, and I don't know if it's indicative of the area that I live in, but you just don't get any luck with the dealers. You know, and they said they're waiting on parts, but then they took ages to get. But first they were saying it's covered under warranty, then they were saying it's not covered under warranty. And it turns out where I bought it from online, they'd registered it as a private individual, and almost do a bit sort of accusatory of it, saying, well, we photographed it and we know it's not been used for private use. And I'm like, you know it's not been used for private use because you know I'm a gardener. So you don't need to take pictures, and you don't need to say that. You just need to say that there's been a problem with the warranty, you know, it's been registered wrong. But anyway, I suppose they have to, you know, but you'd think when you bought stuff off them, it should be straightforward anyway. So that's sorted because it is under warranty. I bought one of them extended warranty things through the still tick thing, connected, whatever. But I'm just waiting for it to come back, but it's been literally ages. I rung them up today. And the annoying thing is I asked them how much the repair was going to be if it wasn't under warranty, and they said with parts and labour it's 330 quid. And this is the thing, how I see tools now, and this is my sort of take on it, is I'm going to buy a tool, I'm going to use the tool for its warranty, and then I will put the spare tool, you know, once that tool's run out of warranty, it will be then put into storage, and then I will buy a new tool to replace it. And then that way I've got a brand new tool, a brand new warranty, and I've got a spare. If I've already got a spare and it's going to be a second spare, it's going to be sold. And then that way I'm starting fresh with warranty. And then if it is that I have a problem with a warranty thing, well, I'll just pull the old one out and get cracking with it. I do look after my stuff as best as I can. I do sharpen the blades and, you know, make sure there's enough oil or the correct amount of grease in the gearbox. But at the same time, that repair's 330 quid. A replacement head is 279 quid. So I don't know how. It's got to be the labour, but I don't know what they're doing with it. Apparently it needs a whole new housing. The pin snapped on it, so whether he can't be asked to drill, I don't know. So yeah, you know, whole new housing, whole new assembly apparently. So whether it's all one piece, I don't know. But a brand new tool, I looked at it today actually, is 479 quid. So, you know, 330 quid or whatever it was to repair an old tool that's going to be out of warranty in a few months, or just replace it for 150 quid extra. It's a no-brainer really. Even if I had to sell that tool as spares or repairs, you'd probably get a ton for it back, because there's nothing wrong with a power head. And I'll be honest with you, I'd just put a new head on it at that much. So anyway, that's my moan about, you know, it's a moan and it is a moan, you know, and I've understand they've got to make money, you know, but it's a bit frustrating sometimes, because when you look at the scalability and the, you know, the repairs of it, it's getting us more towards a disposable society really. But well, it's indicative of everything, isn't it now? I had a phone call off a customer yesterday. I spoke to her, so I rung her up to obviously bring forward a visit, and she said, I need to have a word with you. Now, what I'm about to say, I'm not bashing this customer at all. She's a nice lady, she's a good lady, and I think fundamentally she's looking out for me. So I just do a grass for her, and she said to me that I don't know if her mind was made up, or she was at the point of thinking about it, or she needed more time, but she said to me that she wants to let me know because she's thinking of having a new gardener. Obviously that's what the last thing I want to hear, because she's a good person And she did say to me that she'll hate to lose me because, you know, she likes me and she gets, you know, loves having me there. The problem is she needs the borders doing, and she doesn't want, well, she's not said she doesn't, but she's basically, she knows I struggle with it. She knows that I have problems with, you know, border work and stuff. Now, in the past, funnily enough, I have actually done borders for her. But I think that was pre, you know, op and pre all that sort of stuff that's gone on. So all of my customers, or well, all of my regular customers, they know exactly what the problem is. You know, because I've either had to cancel visits or tell them, you know, I'll be off for a bit, all that. And in many ways, it's a double-edged sword. Sometimes they're very overcautious and they're like, look, Sam, I don't want you doing that. I'll get somebody else to do that. But then, obviously, it's at the detriment to me sometimes. But then, it's a flip side as where they look after you. But I think this lady, like I said, and the frustration for her is she wants the property to look nice. Typically, she does the borders herself. But I've noticed this time round that she's actually been struggling with the borders. And she keeps falling over, so she's worried about that as well. So, you know, it's just... So, the solution that I come up with is, I says to her, look, are you happy for me to take on the borders as well as the grass? I says, you know, at the end of the day, you know the standard of my work. And she says, no, I've got no problem with your work. It's just, I know you struggle with them because of your health, and I don't want... Basically, she doesn't want to put me in a position where you know, she's forcing me to do it. She's almost giving me the option, but also taking the option out of the way. Because, like I said, I can't quite work out whether her mind was made up and she's just mulling it over, or she's, in a way, not forcing me hand, but giving me the option to come up with it. She can't afford 2 gardeners, and that's fine. I suppose that lies the problem. If you are just a mow and go guy, or you are just a lawn care guy, or a hedge guy, well, I suppose the hedges are different, but you know what I mean. You could find that you could be, you know, booted out in favour of somebody who's willing to do it, you know, more. I like this customer. We do get on, to be fair. She's a lovely lady. So I've said to her, look, are you happy for me to basically have a go at him, get him sorted for you? The plan that I've come up with is I'm going to have a proper discussion with her and walk around with her and just get it all set in stone, because I think sometimes you need to do that. So I gave her a sort of, I'll have a chat with her next time, but hopefully if it works out the way it is, I'm hoping it is, I'm going to, you know, explain to this customer that I'll do an area at a time. So she's going to see results straight away. So the front borders will be done next time, and then we'll move on to one of the borders at the back. And then that way, for me, I'm probably only adding about half an hour extra onto my day, but it's a little bit of extra money for me, and also she's got the satisfaction. So like I said, I'm going to sort of see what she says. You never know, she could have made her mind up completely. You never know, there could be an underlying reason. You just don't know. It could be a case. She has got a friend that has been doing bits of garden for her. I don't like her, if I'm being honest with you. She said a couple of little snide things, but she didn't know I was hearing when I was there. I'm not a fan of this at all, but you don't know whether she stirred the pot. You don't even know if she's going to be doing it and getting the money. You just don't know at all. But I know for me, if I do the best job I can, well, that's all I can do, isn't it? If it's not good enough, well, it's the best I can do. I had another thing today off a customer, and so I'd cut his hedge for him, and he's away, so he's been away for 6 weeks. So I cut this hedge 6 weeks ago, and it's a farm hedge, and he was looking at it today, and I could see him looking at it, because when I gave him the bill, he was a bit funny about the bill, but that's another story. So he was looking at the hedge, and he said, oh, I can't think of his exact words, what he said, but he says, just, you know, is there a reason why it looks shit? Something along them lines. But he backtracked when he said that. And I said, well, I try my best to not make it look shit. I says, and basically how I explained, and I went and showed it to him. So it's a farm hedge, so it's a Heinz 69er. It's got everything in it. It's got everything. You imagine it's got laurel through to holly, through to hawthorn. It's got everything. And the two issues he complained about was he wanted it perfectly level. And I says to him, look, I cannot do that. It's one of them hedges where it's flailed off every year, basically. So once it's and it's not that it's undulating, it's massively unlevel. Bearing in mind, he's looking at it 6 weeks after it's been cut. So it is going to look not level because it's going to grow out in certain areas. But it's at the limit of what I can do. And also time. It's to sort of hack into it at every single point to get it perfectly level. It takes it from a £200 job to probably 400, because you'd be there double the time, you'd be loppering it, you'd be trying anyway. And then he complained about there was a lot of basically brambles that had grown through it, so they were all popping here, there and everywhere. And I think that was, and to be fair, it does make the hedge look messy. So I can see his point of view, and I took him down and I showed him. I said, look, all the little spranglangs, all the little things. I says, that's not bits that's been missed, it's brambles. I says, unless you go through and rip the brambles out and then flail the hedge, cut the hedge, whatever, it will last longer, it will stay, at this point in time. You looking at it, it does look like it needs another cut. Because it's a big hedge. He's looking at it from a distance, and as I said, you've got brambles, nettles growing through it, and they grow a lot quicker than the rest of it. But I think with my explanation, he was happy with it. But I think in this industry, you just can't win all the time. You try and win all the time, but you can't, in all fairness. There's always a problem. There's always an issue. There's, I think as well, the nature of running a business is you're dealing with people, and there's a saying that's notice queer as folk. And trying to sort of keep everybody happy, I'll be honest with you, is easier said than done sometimes. But yeah, bit of kit problems, bit of customer problems, but just an average week really. So what I want to talk about in this last bit is we're getting now towards the end of the season. Well, sorry, we've just passed the halfway point of the season. So I think now it's time to looking towards, as much as it sounds grim, it's time now to look towards the winter part of the season and getting prepared for it. And I'm going to talk a little bit about how I prepared in the past, my plans for this winter. But first I'm going to tell you my sort of winters from previous past. So winters for me in general have never actually been too horrific. One of the things that I do whenever I take on new customers is I always say to them that I offer winter work. I'm a winter gardener. I will be here over winter. There's winter work, family winter work, whatever. I get it into the head from the very first visit. Some people are like, oh wow, I just want my lawns doing, there's nothing to do. There's some people where there's work to do, but we don't want to pay for it. But then you get the few gems that actually say, yeah, that's fine. Now, unfortunately, the customers that I had a lot of winter work from, the majority of them have died. So Doreen was a prime example of that. She used to sort of say to me, you still will come over winter, won't you? Unfortunately, she's passed away. And I'll be honest with you, quite a few other people have. It's, OAPs that are proud of the garden, want it to look nice. What I always do is I do a fortnightly visit right up till probably November, and then I switch to a once a month visit in December, January and February. I try and, I'm going to try and do that this year, but I know already off the top of my head, quite a bit of my winter work sort of knocked down, to be fair. So I've got to sort of think ahead for that, but also sort of plan ahead and sort of think what to do. So like I said, I have had a word with other customers, so, there is still winter work there. I think there's going to be winter work off this gentleman I just mentioned, maybe even that other lady. Like I said, there is going to be it's not going to be a case of my business will shut down over winter. I've also got an operation coming up in winter, so I've got to have my hernia repair. I don't know whether that's just before Christmas or just after Christmas. In many ways, I don't know which is the better way to do it. If I could pick, I probably would pick just before Christmas, as in go in on December the 10th, be out for, say, December the 17th, whatever. I've been told it's probably a 3 to 4 day stay in hospital up to a week. You know, he said 2 different sort of times. So yeah, and then rest up over Christmas, and then my plan is to sort of, what my plan is no matter when it happens, is I want to, whatever winter work I've got on, I want to get smashed off in a week. Because then my plan is I want to bugger off up to Scotland for 3-4 weeks if I can. I want to go up in the camper and I want to do the NC500. And basically, I just want to potter around. I want to just, you know, even if I go, just stab a map, just work my way up the country. I'll be honest with you, I'll probably just follow my nose for a week, see where I end up, stop off, and then go on to somewhere else. So I want to have the time off, but also I have got that existing commitment to customers, as in the ones I do regularly. And as well, I don't want to turn the work away. So if there is winter work, I will be taking it. I will be saying to customers, look, you know, I'll be there over winter. I have got commercial work as well that, you know, monthly, you know, visit over Christmas. I know customers, there's the customers that want the winter work, they'll leave the winter work. So there is work, but my plan is to get it smashed off in, whether it's a week, 2 weeks, you know, have a busy couple of weeks, make a bit of money, and then shoot off up to Scotland, basically, or goes down south. You know what I mean? Well, not really down south, but, you know, explore for a little bit. I want to use that time to sort of relax and chill out and just sort of, you know, have some time to myself, basically. So that's what this winter, past winters have been typically not too bad, as I said. I don't think I've ever, it's weird though, because when I fished out my diary for December, I think the first couple of Decembers was just, first couple of winters, and bearing in mind actually, winter is actually January and February. I find November's just a good month. December, it's weird. I find there's normally more work than you think, and also people are very sort of insistent on visits over December. You know, you'll be amazed, well, I'm always amazed by the people that ring up and say, oh, any chance you could do the grass, stuff like that. I will be doing the Christmas card drop again. So I've mentioned this, I don't think I mentioned on the podcast, but I've mentioned on the YouTube channel. One of the things that I do for all of my customers, even the arsehole ones, if there is any, or the nasty ones, if there is any, there's not many to be fair, but one of the things that I do is every single customer that I do regular work for gets a gift and a card. And the reason for it is, one, it's my way of giving back. And when I say a gift, I used to do jam, but the lady, she doesn't do it anymore. So last year I went to Rington's and I think I spent 150 quid on basically a van full of biscuits, you know, really, you know, loads of, because I think I gave out 60 or 70. And some people might be thinking that's ridiculous, you don't need to do that. The answer is you don't need to do that, but I can guarantee that it always pays for itself. It's a nice thing to do. Customers do appreciate it. Some do, some don't. But I think people do appreciate it overall. It's a nice thing to do. And another thing as well, this is one of my main reasons for doing it, is that you are staying on the customer's radar. So I try, and the amount of times where I've dropped, so I always try and drop the card off in the little box of biscuits or jam, whatever it is. I always try and do it a good week before Christmas. I'd say 10 days before Christmas. You know, you want, if Christmas is on a Wednesday, you want to get, you know, not the Wednesday before, probably the Friday, just, you know, like you want a good 10 days before. Knock on, drop the card off. There's customers I've worked for that expect me. There's a few that don't expect me and like, oh, what are you here for? I remember one lady, she was like, I don't want my grass doing. I says, no, I've come to drop you a pack of biscuits off. You know, she was ready with that one, I was ready with a gift, so she sort of ate her own words a bit. But the amount of times where I go, and what I'm doing is, I'll be honest with you, it's a tout for work. I'm there, and I'll look around, and I say, I tell you what, lawn's grown, hasn't it? Or, I tell you what, leaves have come down. Plant the seed in the red. And, actually, I was going to ask you about that. Is there any chance you can judge? And again, the amount of times that I've booked extra visits in before December, before Christmas, you know, use it as an excuse to remind them, I've got that job booked in for you for just after Christmas, that hedge reduction, that shrub reduction, you name it. It keeps you on their radar, basically. Never feel cheeky about it. Like I said, it's not a, it's not a blooming, cash grab sort of thing. But it's extra visits at the end of it. And I think we've got to do what we can to, to keep the work coming in, basically. So that's my sort of thing. As I said, plan is to do what work I can, but then go away when I can, if I'm being honest with you. And for me to do that, and to do how I want to do it, I've got to start saving now. So typically what I've done when it comes to savings is I've started, so what I used to do in the past was I used to use September, October and November to actually save for winter. So I put no money into my winter savings. It was September, October and November. There was one year when I got ill in September, so that sort of stuffed it up because, well, I wasn't earning anything and I didn't save anything, but I had savings, luckily. I've found in the past that typically for me, January is an expensive month because it's the MOT on the van, stuff like that. And then next month it's road tax. So typically what ends up happening is whatever winter money's left quickly gets swallowed up and even into the savings. So in all fairness, I'm typically spending, January, February, March, whatever earnings to top that back up and sort of, live off the money as well, basically. Last year, what money I saved, I actually burnt through it just at the end of Christmas. Well, just like first week of Jan. I think, and this is not my savings, but this is my winter pot. And this year, typically, I used to put away £5,000 for winter. And I used to budget for basically half of December earnings for me, wage, January, February, and then basically, because I know the bare minimum costs it keeps to run the business, so the bills, utilities, storage fees, that all comes out of that. And then basically I've got a little bit of a wage to sort of live off, basically, because my idea is as much as I am sort of budgeting for winter, I am still expecting to work over winter. So typically I have a little bit of a wage that I can fall back on if I get no work and the weather's terrible. But as well, I am able to earn a little bit of money to sort of keep that topped up, basically. But what ended up happening last year was I ended up spending it by the end of January. Well, start of January, I think. The MOT, I didn't budget. It's how much you put aside for an MOT. When the garage has got the wallet detector out, you don't know what he's going to come up with, do you? But this time round, it was 2 new tyres at the front, which I knew about, but then the brakes all the way around, had to be done on the discs as well, which was an unexpected thing. Full service as well, MOT. So, like I said, as much as you try, there's always something that will pull you back, basically. But, well, it is what it is. So I think that's the best piece of advice I can give, is to put money away. One of the things that I do is, I've always said about this, but if I have a tip, come into a little bit of money, win a bit of money on a scratch card, anything, find a tenner down the back of my couch, tenner down the side of my, van seat, whatever. All these little bonus bits of money in air quotes. What I do is I always put it in a jar, obviously, we tell Mr. Taxman, but I always put it in a little bit of a jar. And that's weird because putting money aside, cash aside, it's got such negative connotations nowadays. But yeah, I put a little bit of cash aside, and then typically I use that to treat myself at the end of the year, basically. I used to buy scratch, not religiously, but probably once a week I'd buy a scratch card, a couple of quid one, a fiver one if I was feeling a bit splurgy. Now what I do is I just put, a fiver in. If you get that itch at the boss man shop, whatever, I'll sort of put a fiver, to one side, and I'll put it in the tin, basically. If I'm sort of, if I end up with £5.20 at the end of the month to pay in, I'll put £20 in the tin. Again, tell Mr. Taxman it's full £5.20. We're not trying to con anybody here. And then that way I use that to treat myself at Christmas. That's my little sort of Christmas tin. Same at Christmas. If customers give a tip, it goes into the tips jar, basically. And I treat myself to something at Christmas. I do budget as well for like Christmas presents. So, I want to treat my loved ones. So what I do is, end of every month, I put 50 quid over, 60 quid over into a separate account every single month. I start paying for Christmas now. It's like years ago you could get like them catalogue vouchers. Well, it's a bit like that, where just send 50 quid over, a month, or if I have a good month, another 50 quid, Put a bit of money aside, basically, so you've got that, because at the end of the day, it depends who you are. If you're a Scrooge, it doesn't matter. But for me, I like treating people. And even when I was starting my business and I was short of money, I still treated the people around me. I still got them a Christmas gift. So I put a little bit of money away. And that's the best tip I can give, is put money away. Put, savings away. Because you don't know what winter will bring. You might get to a point where you think, right, I'm going to have it all off. You might have it where you could slip on ice, break your leg. Like in my case, go in the hospital. So I'm going to be laid off for at least a month, maybe. So I need that to sort of live on. And also as well, in my life, there's always something breaking or going wrong. So again, you need that little pot of money to sort of, make it that little bit easier. So don't underestimate, the benefits of putting money aside. I will talk separately about additional services. I called it the side hustle, so I did like exterior cleaning over winter. And as I say, I'm going to talk about it in a separate video. But my take on additional services is you've got to have, so I know a lot of gardeners that, where they will take on other work. So I've known a gardener that he went plastering over winter. So, he was a qualified plasterer. When winter come, he would basically empty his van, put his plastering shit in, and he'd be plastering. And he said that he'd swap outside cutting hedges when it's freezing or whatever, winter work, to he'd be in a customer's house, warm, plastering. I know people where they took on delivery jobs. At the end of the day, if you need to, you need to. And I think sometimes people feel like they're shamed by it. Don't. If you need to go out and earn that money for your loved ones, or even so you've got a better quality of life, do it. Don't be afraid to. If you need to take on a job, don't be afraid to at all. I would, if I needed it. I'd go wiping tables at McDonald's again. If I had kids, children, and I wasn't making the money that I was over winter, and we needed, it was a choice between having, presents and food on the table, and then having nothing but be proud, and stubborn and say, no, I'm not, I'll see what work I can get. Well, I wouldn't. I'd go back wiping tables at Mackey's. It wouldn't bother me at all. It is what it is. It's a fact of life. So don't feel like you're giving up or, you failed. Because once that season starts, the phone will be ringing and you'll all forget about it. And if you've had a crap winter this one year, another season of pushing your business, guarantee you won't be doing it again next year. You'll be working. You've found that work. I've seen other people where they do other services, so gritting and stuff. I don't know anything about gritting, but I know other people that make good money from it. I always think to yourself, whatever you do over winter, you've got to remember that your day's shorter. So your working time is from early in the morning when it's sunlight to probably 4 o'clock. But really, you've got your usable lights probably up till about 3:30. So you've got to factor that in. You've got to factor the crap weather in. So this is another thing with winter work. is whatever winter work you do, you've got to be able to do it. So if it's pouring down with rain, well, do you want to work in the pouring down and rain? Or if it's frozen cold, do you want to work in the frozen cold? And typically it's either HOF, as in it's frozen, or it's pissing down here. It's very rare you get them in betweeny days. Well, you do, but you get what I mean. When you count them up, there's not that many compared to the rest of it. As well, you've got to think about winter for what it is. December, I think, is not actually a bad month. I hear it so often where people are like, well, the garden's finished by September. It isn't. You know, I don't know why. One of my customers, she has a guy. It's a bit of a strange setup, actually. So she has a guy that comes and mows her lawns, and then I mow another lawn for her and do the other jobs, basically. But he stops cutting grass at the end of September, and I take over. And I asked her about it, and she says, oh, well, he doesn't think it needs to, he doesn't think it grows, so he does hedges instead. I said, no. I said, well, it does, because you're asking me, so doesn't he want to? She says, no. So, who knows, really. But anyway, like I said, December, you've got 2 weeks, you know, you've got 3 weeks, technically, because I find, well, less than that, I find typically, unless it's a need, or a want, or a must, customers don't want you there a week before Christmas. They don't want you in between Christmas because, again, it's family, whatever. So, again, you know, that sort of focuses on with them, basically. And then typically a week after Christmas. So, really, if Christmas is 3 months, you're taking a month out of it. I think the proper winter is from January to the end of February. Well, even then, if it's a mild February and the temperatures are coming, you can start sneaking in them visits at the end of February. But typically, January, February, I'd say January is the bleakest month. Everyone's skint. The weather's crap. You know, it's post-Christmas blues. But even then, actually, I'm saying that, typically for me, January is a lot better than February. And I always put it down to them winter blues. Customers are putting the Christmas tree down, they're looking outside and they're thinking, God, that garden looks rubbish, because the house looks rubbish because he took the decks down. And then that's when the phone starts going. So you'll be amazed on what work there is, actually. So I'm going to finish this up. As I say, I'm going to do another video at some point talking about diversifying and offering additional services, because I think I've done the majority of exterior based services, and I'm going to go through with them. I think the best way I can sum it up, and I heard this from Matt from Meticulous Gardens, he said on a podcast, is there's 2 trails of thought when it comes to additional services. You can spend the extra money on the training, the kit, the advertising, on them additional services, or you can spend that money on boosting your existing your existing business, as in more advertising, more better kit. And I think the 2 have definitely got merit. Like I said, I'm going to talk about my sort of dalliance with additional service in the exterior cleaning business another time. So, squeaky chair, thank you for watching, guys. As usual, keep on gardening and look after yourself, whatever it is that you're doing, guys.